morning, everyone. Welcome to day 18 of Acharya Red Connect 2025, a premier online webinar series organized by Department of Medical Imaging Technology, Acharya Institute of Allied Health Sciences, in association with Indian College of Radiological Technology. I am Rizwan, your host for today. Before we dive into the session, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Ms. D. Regida. Ms. Regida is an assistant professor in the Department of Radiology and Imaging Technology at Department of Allied Health Sciences, Ramaiah University, Bangalore. With a strong academic and technical background, she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our session today. She has 2 years of technical experience and 4 years of teaching experience, making significant contributions to the field of radiology and imaging technology. Her dedication to the research and education is evident through her presentation at various national and international conferences and her role as a guest lecturer and resource person at reputed universities and colleges across India. Ms. Regida has also made valuable contributions to academic literature with two publications to her credit. We are truly honored to have her with us today, and I am confident that her insights will be both enlightening and inspiring. Please join me in welcoming Ms. D. Regida. Over to you, ma'am.
So thank you. Thank you so much for the intro. And first of all, thanks for the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. So let's my team. So yeah, good morning all. I can see there are 37 attendees. Pretty good number to start with. Yeah, before starting my presentation, I just want to know a few things about the attendees. Can I know how many of you know about T2 relaxometry? You must have seen that what topic that I'm going to take today. Can I know, how many of you have an idea about T2 relaxometry? You can just raise your hand. Good. I can see one. Good. Yes. Nice. I can see some four to five. And now the second question is, how many of you have finished your MRI semester and how many of you are currently running your MRI semester? Raise your hand. Good. Yeah. 4, 3. Okay. Now the third question is, who doesn't have any idea about an MRI? Who might be the first year or maybe the second years where you will be in your, basic parts like your radiological physics or positioning, which you went into an MRI. Okay. Let's hope you can see the screen. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. Before starting T2 relaxometry, I just want to reassure to the attendees that to understand this concept, you need not to know about an MRI. To understand this concept, you need not to work on this in MRI. And MRT to relaxometry, who already know about the T2 relaxometry, it's like a brush up to you, and I'll be talking about little physics, which usually you will be not getting in any of the presentations or any of the dedicated textbooks. So in that way, you will be benefited through this session. Without any delay, let me start with my topic, which is T2 relaxometry. See the term T2 relaxometry, where I'll be talking about a relaxation method which is happening in an MRI, which is in a T2 one. See, I always tell to my students also, just look at the terms that we are using where the entire concept will be lying on that itself. If you can understand those terms, it's very easy and to remember to understand the concept. Let me start with an introduction that, usually an MRI we'll be saying in terms of an images, which is a qualitative method, which is a subjective as well. Where nowadays the MRI has brought an interest in terms of making it as a quantitative. That means which can be reproducible, how many ever times that you will repeat it. That means it is not depends upon its subjective, or it will not depend upon who will be doing the scanning. It is not depending on who will be reporting it. Irrespective of it, whoever does and how many ever they do, the same kind of an output has to come. So with that interest, there is one concept has raised, which is known as quantitative relaxometry, which expressed in an absolute unit, is the numbers, and it can be quantified by T1, T2, and T2 star. That means you can do T1 relaxometry, T2 relaxometry, T2 star relaxometry. Where today we are discussing about T2 relaxometry alone. Why means it's mostly the pathologies which can be picked up by the T2. So more of the interest towards what kind of pathology it is, which can be an alternative method for a biopsy in histology. What will happen in a diagnostic radiology is that if you see in the report at the last point, there is then mentioned as kindly correlate with the histopathology. That means whatever we are saying based on the image characteristic, based on the pathological characteristics, we are suggesting this might be the pathology, but kindly correlate with whether it is true or not with the histopathology. So again, the patient has to come a minor or major interventional procedures for either biopsy or whatever the sample has to be taken. That can be replaced if you can able to tell 100%. You no need to go to for any of the further histopathological investigations. That can be by the quantitative methods of an MR. This is a basic introduction what we are going to see. We are not talking about how the images is taken and what is the contrast of it and how the image characteristics. No. We are talking about how to quantify those information which is coming from an MR. So for the T2 relaxometry, especially, you need minimum of 1.5 Tesla for any of the scanners. Either you have Siemens or GE, where I have worked personally in Siemens and GE, so I have mentioned those two. Why 1.5 Tesla? Why can't it is less than that? Because you need little homogeneous environment to quantify in a better way. So now coming to the heart of the topic, what is relaxometry? MRI basically weighted in two ways. One is T1 weighted, T2 weighted. The terms that we are using for that is longitudinal relaxation time for T1 and transverse relaxation time for T2. Who doesn't know about an MRI at all, please listen to this. MRI will be in two ways. One is T1 and T2, where we are talking about T2, which can be useful to identify any kind of pathologies, where T1 is about anatomy. Okay. Now, see the term transverse relaxation time. For this transverse relaxation time, there are many parameters which will help us to produce those images. If I take only the time component, how much time it is taking to produce or to get into the T1 image and how fast it is happening. If I take the time alone and the rate alone, we call it as a relaxometry. So this is the basic concept of the relaxometry. And measurement of the relaxation times is called relaxometry. And what you will do with this time? What you will do with relaxation rate? I'll produce a map. If you see in your school days or so, if you draw some graph or some, mapping, you have particular points to, link together. That means you have a multiple points. So with that multiple points, I'll create a maps which can be quantified with the numbers and also a visual representation. That how it will be happen. The images representing the spatial distribution of relaxation time. See the term spatial distribution. This time and the rate I'll be distributed in the spatial frequency and I'll quantify it. For the examples are T1 map, T2 map, T2 star map. As I told you before, relaxation time is T2. How much time it is? getting back, or that T2 decay is happening, or the T2 relaxation time is happening, and how fast it is happening, which is relaxation rate. Usually it will be inversely proportional. Relaxometry involves the acquisition of T2 relaxation time of each voxel in the image. Here you have to concentrate how it is different from your normal T2 image to the T2 relaxometry is. In your T2 image, the relaxation time is an overall to that particular area of interest. When it comes to the relaxometry alone, I'm talking about only the time that is taken by the molecules or the dipole interactions that are happening within the each voxel of particular area of interest. That means I'm taking a quantification of each and every voxel in the image. Okay, it is not an overall of your image. So it will be very particular to that particular voxel and where you are concentrating and which anatomy you will be concentrating. And with that, you will be generating the maps by the relaxation rate. As I told you before, how fast that T2 relaxation time is happening, that is known as relaxation rate. And you need minimum 2 images to produce a T2 relaxometry map. As I told you before, if it is a map, there should be different points. If only one point, how you can say it is a graph? So you have a different points, that means different types of images that you are taking at different times, being together, you can produce a map. So how this will be depends the relaxometry is time of repetition, your TR and the TE, and the number of images that are acquired with a different TE. One is time of relaxation, that is time of repetition, and the time of echo, and the different types of TE also. How many TEs that you are giving and getting an image. Now, if you ask me a question, ma'am, what is the difference, between a normal T2 and images and T2 relaxometry? Is it the same sequence? Yes, it is the same sequence. It's the same sequence. What is getting different is, you see the sequence here. Now, first you have to start with a 90 degrees, which can fall into the transverse relaxation, and then you will be giving an 180 refocused pulse. And immediately you are not giving a 90. And again you are giving an 180. Again you are giving an 180. How long you will give this one? Based on what kind of pathology you are looking into and what type of scanner you are having in your particular scanning center or with the hospital. And if you see, equal time intervals I will be maintaining. So why I have to maintain the equal time intervals? To get a true T2 values. If you ask me, what if we don't maintain the exact time intervals, we will not get the true T2 values? We will not get the true T2 values. You have to maintain exact time interval between one pulse to another pulse. The strength should be similar according to the theoretical purpose. Is it similar here? Is it similar to signal intensity? No. What is happening? Gradually it is reducing when you keep on giving an 180 degree refocusing pulse. Here, you are giving the same angle and the same 180 degree RF pulse. It's the same interval, but how come the signal intensity is getting reduced by each and every type? Here, the entire concept of T2 relaxometry lies. This is why the T2 relaxometry was not there few years back. If the intensity is getting reduced, how you will get a true T2 relaxation rate? It's not possible. Theoretically, though you are giving the same interval and the same 180 degree refocusing pulse, it should be the same signal intensity. But in a practical scenario, it is not happening in that way. So what else is happening in a practical scenario? At each 180 degree refocusing pulse, the first time it might be a true 180, but the second, it may not be a true 180, it might be an 177, 178, 174, and keep on, it is getting reduced. Though I have mentioned theoretically 180, but practical scenario, it is not 180. That's why your signal intensity is getting reduced. See this image. So there is the sequence called it as Neobin-Gill modification of the Corpuscle-Pinnacle sequence. These two people who invented this particular methodology of creating a true T2 values which can be quantified. But they got to know this is the limitation of this one. With these two people, which Huel, Neobin, Gill had come up with a new idea. Now you will give a 90-degree pulse, which will be in an X plane, the transverse plane it will be getting, and then you have given an first 180-degree refocusing pulse. Instead of giving 180-degree refocusing pulse in X-axis, try to give in an imaginary line called as a Y-axis. Now I am not in a Z-axis. Z-axis is your patient long axis, which is your X-axis, your transverse plane. Now the 180 degrees, usually in your two pulse sequences, the 180-degree pulses also should be in an X-axis, which will be in a transverse plane where you will get a signal. Now, what they have done, instead of giving an X-axis, you try to give in an Y-axis. Put one imaginary line, give in an Y-axis. So, what will happen is the errors, what is happening when it is going back to an X-axis or Z-axis, which is coming back into your longitudinal relaxation or maybe the T2 decay, it will be in an coming, it's like a fourth and direction, back and front direction. The plus and minus axis will get cancelled with each other. So it will be on the same phase. The signal loss will not happen. So you will get every 180 degree, you will get an similar signal which you can quantify the T2 values properly. I know it's little difficult to understand. Let me recap it once again. Normal pulse sequences where 90-degree RF pulse, immediately 180-degree refocusing pulse. When it comes to the T2 relaxation, a continuous 180-degree refocusing pulse, not in an X-axis, but in an Y-axis. Why it is? The errors can be compensated in both in a positive and negative way. So you will be in the same phase direction without losing your T2 integrity in the images. This is the concept, a principle, how T2 relaxometry has been evolved. So what are the applications of it? There are different applications where, if you are in an intern, if you are in a third year, who will be in a group project or something, you actually work on this and it's very easy. If you just apply once or twice, you will be become a pro how to use this one. It's just about, how you will do the post-processing and how advanced scanner you will be having. If you, lower end missions where you need to, they have different steps has to be taken. Where it comes to the 3 Tesla and above that, it's a very few clicks where you will get in, relaxation maps in the values. So you just need to get into once into this. That's all. So what are the applications are? Neurological applications where you can see any of the, in this case, this is what your hypothalamus atrophy and their degenerations and musculoskeletal and cartilage imaging, which is largely using in tissue relaxometry, which is your MSK imaging, all parts of the joints, which is your cartilage and ligamental tears and their degeneration, and the early degeneration can be picked up. And oncology patients, so this is how it looks in your MSK. And coming to an oncology patients, the progression of the tumor and the treatment responses can be evaluated. See, once, especially in an oncology and radiotherapy, you will be killing the cells by using the radiation. With that, in local inflammation might happen, leads to a fluid accumulation, and how it is getting absorbed and how it is getting filled up by can also be seen by the tissue relaxometry. And liver and cardiac applications as well, where see the color codings in this, we'll talk about this later also. Color codings will differ how T2 map you want to see, how T2 maps you want to interpret. There are different options in different scanners. So let me explain you with one example where I have worked personally. So you will get some idea where the post-processing is similar to entire, applications. But I'll show you in one application which I worked, so you'll get an idea. So I worked with a glenohumeral cartilage evaluation, which is near T2 shoulder joint. The patient preparation, yeah, you all know that MRI should be free from all the metals, and you have to give an informed consent, and the patient should be comfortable, and you should explain the procedure to the patient, how long it will take, and what kind of study they are going through. It's very important, and identification of the patient and the correct patient to that particular protocol or the procedure. And what is the technique? Since it's a glenohumeral cartilage is a part of your shoulder joint, you have to position the patient accordingly. The patient has to be in supine position. Orientation should be head first and centering over the humerus, especially in the shoulder joint. And the receiver coil is, shoulder flex coil, usually in 1.5 decides, mostly in the 4-channel flex coil. And the planning should be in a coronal plane. If you ask me why coronal plane, as simple as it is, in which plane you will see the long axis of the anatomy. If it is a hypothalamus, again it's a coronal. If it is any other, amygdala or something, you have to go and exit. So based on your region of interest, you have to decide which plane you are seeing a long axis of that particular anatomy. In this glenohumeral cartilage, the best plane is your coronal plane. So I can see a long axis of the glenohumeral cartilage. So to get a coronal plane, excuse me. In the coronal plane, to get the coronal plane, you have to plan in both sagittal and axial plane. In the axial plane, it has to be parallel to your supraspinatus tendon, where in sagittal plane, it has to be parallel to your, head of the humerus and the shaft. These are the parameters. And I think it's a recorded session. You can get this, again, you can come back and you can see these parameters also. It's basically a prefixed protocol in any of the scanners. You can just see that TR and TE. There are how many TAs are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 echoes. If you ask me, is it constant? It is constant. Depends upon which kind of mission you have and what type of scanner and where is the application. Usually, it's a prefixed protocol in any of the scanners. If you ask me, is it changeable? Yeah, it is changeable as. In the flip angle, it's a flip angle, 180-degree refocusing pulse. So it's a 180, and the matrix size has to be maintained accordingly. And next should be 1, and the slice thickness will be 3 for this glenohumeral cartilage. If you want to increase or decrease, your scanning time will vary. So basically, there are 5 echoes in this particular scanner, which is the Siemens one, which I am showing you now. Different TEs, that means time of echoes, and the time that I'm maintaining. The first TE is at 13.9 seconds, and the second 27.8, 41.7, 55.6, 6.95. Why 5? Why not more than that? For the glenohumeral cartilage, to cover that anatomy, 5 is enough for this particular slice thickness. So coming to the post-processing, I have fixed the protocol. I have done the coronal plane along with the other images, which is other sequences which is needed for the shoulder joints, which all your 3-plane PD and straight sequences. Add the extra sequences to your T2 relaxometry, where I am suspecting some of the pathologies related to the glenohumeral cartilage. I have got the images. Now, what to do with that? You have to do the post-processing to generate a T2 map, and it should be in a color map. Why it is in a color map? For a visual representation of the true T2 value. How to do that? First step is loading the data. Select the images where you have done the T2 relaxometry. So this is how it will be popped up. Along all those images, one sequence is your T2 relaxometry. Select that one. Open in a 3D NPR window. This is how you will get. And select all the morphological images to that. And this icon called as 3D Fusion. 3D Fusion window, where you will be fusing your T2 true values with your grayscale images, where you will be highlighting those particular area itself. Once the 3D Fusion is opened, you have to select the echo images. Can you see that I have got the images at all 5 echoes at 13.9, 27.8, 41, and 65, 69. So I have got at the same particular area different time zones, different 5 images. Now, optimize the image display. Once you have got those images, open in a Fusion box, open the Fusion definition dialog box, and this something will be pop up. Okay, in this there are 2 options which is very important, which is your rainbow and there's the gray. What should be the background image and what should be the highlighted part? My highlighted part should be the glenohumeral cartilage, and the backside, the background entire anatomy should be in a grayscale. That has to be selected with your window width and window level. So this has to be maintained for the cartilage. And this will be differ for different anatomy, where I am talking only about the cartilage. If you want to apply for different anatomy, if you are interested or if you are working, you always free to call me or free to contact me. I'll guide you in how to select this window width and window level based on your interest. For this cartilage, glenohumeral cartilage, where my window level and window width should be the 45, and the window level and window width for the grayscale should be, and so on. So, and the level should be, it will be 0 before, and you have to go for 1. And how to visualize the cartilage. Now I have done all the background work. I have I had given a data to the system. What should be the window level? What should be the window width for both the highlighting part as well as the background part? And what's the next step I have to do? Visualize only the cartilage. My intention is only to see the cartilage, nothing, no tendons, no bone, no any other soft tissues over the shoulder joint. My interest is only to the cartilage. Now, there's something called as, you will get some image like that. There is something, one box you will get, we call it as Vivo a punch mode box. You have to select that one and trace the cartilage alone. It's a manual thing. You have to draw, you have to see the image, and you have to draw an entire cartilage. Keep an option called click keep inside icon. That means you keep the values which I have drawn in this particular area. So set the mixing ratio for 50% and you will get an image something like that. Why it is in red color alone? I'll tell you why. First, you save the image. You have got the image and save it. Now, you have got something with a color coding, right? That is a visual representation. Now, as I told you before, quantification is required. That means I need a number. Select the exam series. Again, go to the tutorial axometry. Go to the sort by slices. Select slice position. Select the images at the images where you can see an cartilage in a long axis. Take those images. Go to the evaluation window, dynamic analysis, and T2. And then T2 various. Go to the tool called as an ROI. ROI of the circle, we mentioned it as. And place this ROI over this images. This is how an image will be looking like. Okay. Here, see the image, you will be not seeing any of the soft tissue pathology. You are not seeing any of the anatomy related. So grainy, right? Here you have the values, an image having and holding the T2 values very strong, where it ignored all your soft tissue pathology. So that's why the image is like that. Now you have to keep, when you are making this one, you have to keep your color scale image also next to that. So you have an idea where you are keeping the ROIs. Usually the ROIs has to keep where the pathology you are suspecting, if not to the comparison at the long axis of the glenohumeral cartilage. Where I have mentioned here is your middle part of your glenohumeral cartilage. Both the anterior and the posterior side also has to be taken for the comparative purpose. These are the values you have got. Now, how to analyze it? How to analyze whether it is normal or not? Now I have got something in a quantification, the numbers, as well as the T2 mapping images. How to analyze it? For the normal cartilage in any part of your body, it should be 32.1 or 32 to 35 milliseconds. The T2 value, the rate should be within 32 to 35. If there is any osteoarthritic changes, why arthritic changes? If there is any degeneration, there will be a mild or moderate accumulation of any fluids in your joints. If you see older patients or your grandma or grandfather, usually their knees and the shoulder is swishing and it will be like it's soft. Why? There is a more accumulation of the fluid because of the arthritic changes in their joints. So if it is a mild arthritis, it will go 34 to 41. And if it is severe arthritic changes, it is greater than 45 milliseconds. Where these numbers are standardized and you can get it, from any of the websites related to it, relaxometry. And I have got this information from this particular reference. Now, you understood the quantification of the T2 values and what is normal, what is abnormal, what is the severe of it, and how to map with the colors. See in this image how difficult it is to look at. Basically, when you are giving this kind of images to the radiologist, they'll zoom and they'll see what is the mean and maximum and the standard deviation. Based on that, they'll see what is the values. But immediately one can say whether it is normal or not is your tree color mapping. So, higher T2 values, which will be represented in the blue color, where the medium is in the green to yellow, where the shorter T2 values will be in the red. That's why you have seen in the first image, which is in, I'll just show you. Can you see this image, which is in a red color? That means it has a short T2 value. That means there is no degeneration over there. There is no fluid accumulation over there, where you have a more T2 value. In this, there is a less T2 values, where I didn't still go to the quantification of the T2 values. By seeing this color, I can say it's a short T2 values. There is no degeneration over there. There is no abnormality over there. That is one of the major advantage of your color mapping. And if you ask me why it is always in this green, red and blue, no. That's why there is an option called rainbow scale or 16-bit, and you have the many options within that. If you want to change where the shorter T2 value should be in the blue color and medium should be in this, and the higher should be in the red, it's up to you. But mostly standardized one is this. So this is one of the case where you can see, right, where in your superior part, you can see the blue color coding. That means there is a mild degeneration over that area, leads to a fluid accumulation in that particular area. This is how, without going to the T2 values, I can just, by seeing the color mapping itself, I can identify there is something wrong in that particular area. So let me show you a few case studies which we have worked on. It's a case of 29 years male, old male patient. See, the 29 years means quite young and adult patient. There should not be a degeneration, right? Degeneration is something related to an old patient, or with the age it will be happening. Why in 29 years old patient having something like that? So this patient have a history of left shoulder pain with a 1-year gym training, following with the pain increased. First he has the shoulder pain. He thought maybe if I do the gym or something, it might go. What has happened is it worsened his situation. And then when he has suggested to an MRI, we have suspected and we have done an T2 relaxometry to that patient. If you can see the grayscale imaging in the PD sequence, these mild osteoarthritic changes is not picked up in your any of the grayscale imaging. It's lucky, I can say that. When we are doing the study, this patient has come and we have done the study for this patient and it has been picked up for this patient, which is also the T2 values more than 45 to 60, which is an degenerative changes suggesting in both color mapping as well as the T2 values. So we had given it as an adding value to the report that it's a suggestion of early degenerative changes. If we would have not done this T2 relaximetry for this patient, maybe the patient would have come up with a report as normal or something, maybe, strain over that area. And coming to the recurrent dislocation, if you ask me, if there is any dislocations or something, obviously there will be a fluid accumulation. In that case also you will say degeneration. No. Say this. See the grayscale image, you can see the fluid accumulation over that particular area very well. But see the color mapping code. If I do the color mapping, see there is almost it's in the shade of PR shorter T2 values. Since there is a T2 value increases because of the fluid accumulation, you can correlate with the color mapping. That's the significance of color mapping along with the T2 values of the grayscale imaging. You will be not misinterpret any of the pathologies. And one more application, that is, if you apply this T2 relaximetry in hippocampal sclerosis, especially, in cases of epilepsy or something, usually we'll look at the hippocampal area if there is any degeneration over that area. In this case, if you can see the mean deviation, yeah, it's a very nice image. You can see these are the options you will get once you put an ROI over that particular area in T2 relaximetry. There is something called as minimum and maximum, mean and standard deviation in area and the pixels. What is minimum and maximum is a minimum time that is getting relaxed within that. This is the area of interest. It is giving an only information about this particular region of interest. Within this, what is the minimum time of relaxation has happened? What is the maximum time of relaxation has happened? But the mean and standard deviation is overall average of this one, which is 116.2. Where this area is the area of this particular ROI. That is what it is mentioned in 0.085 centimeters. And what is the pixels here is the pixels area of this only particular region of interest. And usually when it comes to the hippocampal, you have to do for the both the hippocampal region for the comparative purpose. In this case, it's a elevated T2 values more than 110 milliseconds in the hippocampus, which suggests as a neuronal loss and the gliosis. Basically, it's a degeneration, leads to an epilepsy and the hippocampal atrophy. Now, in cartilage, I have told you 45 to 47 and more than that is your severe arthritic changes, which is in blue color. When it comes to the hippocampal region, see the standard value is your 110. That means the severe, moderate, mild and normal is different for different pathology in T2 relaximetry. You have to work, you have to understand the standard values based on the region of interest and based on your interest where you are working on. With that, what are the advantages? It removes the influences which is related on the tissue properties, as we discussed, which is the subjective that will be overcome by this. And it is useful for the comparative purpose for different patients. Now we have seen, younger patients. As you know, younger patients should not get a degenerative. Still, there is something like you will be correlating with another set of the adult patients, whether it is normal or abnormal. And the reduction of biases and reproducibility, very, very important. Reproducibility. That is the main advantage of any of the quantitative method in an MRI. If you do today or tomorrow, after 10 days, after 1 month, it should be the same value. That can be possible only in a quantitative way. And provides the measurements of biological properties similar to your biopsy and histology. That's why I have told you which you can overcome of going through and biopsy and histology if you can adapt to the quantitative methods in an MRI. Let me conclude. T2 relaximetry is a powerful MRI tool that quantifies tissue properties by measuring transverse relaxation times and rates. I'm talking about T2 relaximetry alone, which is the transverse relaxation times and rates. If the relaximetry also can be done in your T1 and T2 star, which that differs from your T2 normal relaximetry, where T1 is your longitudinal relaxation and T2 star is your gradient waves, the gradient pulse sequences you'll be using. The T2 relaximetry itself is useful for many pathologies, and especially in an MSK. It plays a crucial role in diagnosing and monitoring neurological, musculoskeletal, and psychiatric conditions by providing a precise, reproducible data. Tissue relaxometry enhances detection, treatment planning, treatment assessment, treatment responses can be able to pick up. So it makes an essential tool in a modern medical imaging. And still, it's actually becoming a very common in terms of research. But when it comes to the practical scenario, it's quite challenging to the technologists because it's a little time consuming. Mostly they'll run another sequences which can be picked up, but few cases it's really required and really important if you can adapt to how effectively you can reduce the scan timing by giving an optimum image quality with the tissue relaxation. Yeah, these are the references, and yeah, thank you so much. If you have any doubts, I'm open to that. Or if you want to understand any of the slide in a better way also, I'll teach you again.
If anybody has any questions, please post it in the chat box. Ma'am can answer it for you.
Yes. I'm actually anticipating some questions. Hope you have understood HT relaxometry. Basically, it's very easy. You just need to work at least one case, if you have an access. Yeah, we can also use in abdominal studies. Yes, you can use in abdominal studies, and you have to very specify it within abdomen where you have to use, whether you want to use in liver. Yeah, there are, as I told you before, you can do the relaxometry in T1 as well as, T2 star, where the T2 star is usually helpful for iron depositions and related to that pathologies. So for coming to the liver and abdomen, mostly we'll go for a T2 star, relaxometry instead of T2, where you will use the gradient pulse sequences, not the RF refocusing 180 degrees. Any other questions? The beautiful part of this is the physics part of this teaching relaxometry, where the way they thought of giving a 180-degree refocusing pulse in a y-axis, that was really an amazing thing, which helped to get a true T2 value. That's the only way that we can quantify it. That's a beautiful part of the T2 relaxometry. Any other question? Can I know anyone is currently working on T2 relaxometry? So I just want to know how you are doing, what type of scanner you will be having. See, if you have, which I have showed you is a Siemens one, where I have worked in GE as well. If you want to know the post-processing method, and where I have worked in a 1.5 Tesla, where in 3 Tesla, it's a very few clicks, you will get the T2 values. So in terms of post-processing, if you are currently working, if you want to work into that, if you need any help in terms of post-processing methods, you can contact me. You can get my details from the organizers, or you can just go to the website of Ramaya. You will get my details. Any other question?
If there are no more further questions, we can wind up the session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the detailed explanation of how T2 relaxometry works and the sequences involved, and also giving us examples with case studies. It was a very interesting experience. Before we conclude, let me brief the participants about the next speaker for tomorrow. We shall be having two speakers tomorrow. We will have with us Ms. Kaveri Sirdesh Pandey, MRI radiographer, New Cross Hospital, Wolverhampton, UK, who will be talking on artificial intelligence in MRI. And the second speaker will be Mr. Bindu Prakash, Assistant Professor, Department of Medical Imaging Technology, Charcos Institute of Allied Health Sciences, Mysore, who will be talking on diffusion tensor MRI and fiber tractography. One important thing to note here is that tomorrow's session will be at 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. due to the time difference between India and the UK. So we look forward to see the same enthusiasm you all have shown us so far. Once again, our sincere thanks to our distinguished speaker for sharing such valuable insights to us and to all the participants for your active engagement throughout the session. We hope you found the session both enriching and interesting. We look forward to having you join us again for another session soon. See you all tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Until then, take care and have a wonderful day.
Yes. Thank you so much once again to the Acharya Institute, and a special thanks to the Mr. Jiva who actually contacted me for this. And also thanks for the ICRT team. I know about ICRT quite long. They always stay in the forefront wherever it's possible, then they'll try to engage with the students to share the knowledge. Yeah, I'm happy to be part of this. Thank you so much.